on the ground reporting from the Wealth Today Summit in Dubai, and sitting with me two titans of their respective industries, Gaurav Dubey, who is a CEO of TDFI, and Mario Nawfal, who is a CEO and founder of the International Blockchain Consulting Group, IBC for short. Gentlemen, what an honor and treat to have both of you together at the same time. You've created a fantastic ecosystem around TDFI. I want to talk about that. You're host of your amazing Twitter spaces. You've hosted people like SBF, Elon Musk. I listen to your thing and I tune in, so big fan of your Twitter space. Glad to have both of you here joining me at the David Lynn Report. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Recent news that everyone wants to learn more about. SVB, just today, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, said that more are on the way. Do you agree? Start with you.
I'll just quickly say pretty much yes, not just from the banking point of view, but from the macro finance and the way it has been evolving. And like I said, this topic can go on and on for 10 hours. I'll just say a few lines, which is one, yes, the microeconomics of the world, the war-like situation, and the reason of the trigger of that war-like situation, which is obviously better quoted by Ray Dalio as the shift of power of the world. I think all of that point to happenings like these, both in financial markets, banks, and commodities. So we're right at the brink of it. I think the next 5 years will have a tale to tell.
Perhaps this is just isolated into the tech and crypto sectors. What do you think, Mario?
Look, we're going through very, very, very difficult times because you got geopolitics making it very difficult for regulators and for the Fed to control inflation. But at the same time, there's serious cracks showing in the system. It started with crypto. Crypto got screwed hard, but now you've got the financial system showing the vulnerabilities. I've had for the last 4 days, I've just spoken to everybody you can think of in the financial space, and people are split how contagious this is. But for me, what I find is that this, I don't underestimate the size of the banks that failed now in terms of assets under management is already bigger than 2008. Now the exposure is not the same, so I'm not apples and oranges, but I just want it to be taken seriously by anyone listening. So I'm not saying there will be contagion. No one can predict the future. No one knows what the Fed's going to do. But I do worry seeing how quickly Silicon Valley Bank failed, how quickly Credit Suisse needed support. And there's rumors about other banks. By the time this goes live, there'll probably be another bank that's on the news. So we'll see. But the good thing is that Bitcoin was born in 2008 in the global financial crisis. Yes. Just saying. Now we're going through a very similar process where trust in that we have a run on the banks.
Well, what are you saying? There's going to be a new Bitcoin?
I'm just saying that Bitcoin's, everyone's talking about Bitcoin becoming a store of value, and detaching from risk assets. For me, I still think it's going to take a long time. It's something that takes very, very long to establish itself as a store of value. In my opinion, it will still be considered a risk asset, but detaching and becoming more of a store of value when banks are losing so much trust is a very exciting possibility for the space. And I think Gaurav will tell you, he's excited as hell. He goes to me, he's usually never excited, but he goes to me, he's like, Mario, I think we're back.
I'll let you respond to that.
Exactly. So we live in the same house, obviously. We have a lot of discussions around him being the center of information, me being an absolute opposite. I just don't depend on any single source of information. I only do my own research and make tiny conclusions. I have nothing to do with the geopolitics, right? So there are less times when we agree on things, but when we agree, it's certainly a mix of two rather radical opinions. One is a very public, hyper-curated, one is a well-researched, just personal perspective and the experience of finance, 15 years, global finance. So I do believe that we are at the brink of a pseudo, I still call it pseudo because this is still not the real bull run, which is caused by real economic/production angle. I'm a big production guy. I believe in the real world value systems. So that way I still don't think we're there, just because now there'll be a huge cover up initiated by the US, backed up by the Europe. We know what is happening. You know, we don't have to discuss geopolitics here, like Mario quoted. But we are in the brink of a huge patch up. This would rather be called in the books of financial history as the big patch, right? The world governments are in a haste to patch things. This patch will come with a big financial supply, with backing of the markets to make it look like it's good, right? And that's what happened right after the pandemic, when the markets fell off the cliff, and then immediately the patch came. This is going to be like he quoted. It is bigger than the pandemic. It's bigger than '08. So it's definitely going to be a bigger patch, right? And this has happened in the past.
How is it bigger than '08 in terms of its effects on everybody? Like you said, perhaps size, but not contagion.
Yeah. So it could become bigger than '08.
Okay.
Considering how much leverage there is in the system. Now, no bear market is the same as the one before it. So we're not facing a similar, a similar contagion to what we had in '08. The amount of toxicity on the bank's balance sheets back in '08 is insane. It's like ridiculous. But then again, if you go back to '08, if you ask people before the correction, before the crisis, if you say to them, what do you think of the markets? And you start criticizing. You've seen the movie The Big Short, yeah?
Yeah.
People were laughing at anyone criticizing the real estate market, and then it turned out to be the biggest pile of shit there is. So you just don't know what's wrong until, man, FTX was the shit in crypto. Sam Bankman-Fried was the man in Washington, spreading the word about crypto, educating the regulators about crypto, and then look where we are today. So if you go back to the traditional financial system, which is obviously the main focus of ours with Silicon Valley Bank and now Credit Suisse, you don't know what you don't know. One thing I do know, though, information now spreads a lot faster than it did in 2008. So the fractional reserve banking depends on the confidence of the people, the confidence in the system. And that confidence has never been more delicate because of how fast information spreads. And this has been a concern that we've discussed a lot on the show with regulators and with executives at various financial institutions.
I want to provide you with a hypothetical scenario, and this leads to my next discussion point on the future of DeFi.
Can I pause you there? Yeah. I actually have a hypothesis to present right here.
Okay, please.
To back his statement. Okay. We went through different pandemics of their own types. Malaria. What was it? Crickets. Right? So many. I'm sorry. There were many famines in the past, right? But many pandemics in the past. Like he said, you don't know what you don't know. You know your old patches. You try to patch it up the old way always, and then the more you patch, you're only digging your grave deeper for the next big thing, the next big crash. This is exactly the same. We were able to patch up real estate, bank, sophisticated instruments, bonds, more structured products of retail, right, or institutions. But what we thought is, government bonds are safe, currencies are safe, larger banks are safe. This is what we thought, and this is what we were living upon. That was the patch of the last '08. To answer your question, how do you think it's bigger than last time? Because we already have patched everything we could from our information of the past. So this one has to be bigger, but we don't know what's yet to come. We can only depend on the cycle and the way I don't have a name for them, how they know how to patch it. So I sound like a conspiracy theorist here, which I hate to sound like, but this is how it is. You only know the pattern. You've patched everything you could from the learnings of the past, but there's a future ahead. We are crashing on government bonds this time. This hasn't happened in the past. You don't know how to patch it, right? The reason SBV was at a loss, a major loss, was basically the Fed rates hiking up, hence giving a loss on the interest on the bonds. Right? That was where they piled up the losses. So have you heard of that before? I'm sure you did. But have you heard of a patch of that before? Let's talk about that. So
just to follow up, I want to posit this after that, but just to follow up on that then, Gaurav, when all this is patched up, after this patch happens, What does the financial system look like after this patch?
Oh, talk to me about it, crypto, man. I don't have anything else to shill.
Well, no, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Is crypto the answer to banking?
Let me not take it too religiously to crypto in my current business. Let me stay true to the spirit of this interview and wealth and finance at large.
Yeah.
I don't think the fractional, like, again, I'm complimenting and adding to what Mario said. I don't think the fractional reserve systems would be the future. I think the more dependable future of finance rests upon more non-inflationary systems, which obviously is pointing towards Bitcoin and DeFi. I'm definitely sure that the present form of DeFi is not at all competent to cope up with the demand of the future, the regulators of the future, and the future of finance. But I'm sure this is the very beginning of finance. I'm sure there'll be products more structured. I don't want to shill Aave here. I don't hold any Aaves, but Aave Institutional is a good model to look at. Aave Institutional DeFi is a working product for institutions and regulators. We just had Peter on our panel, 30 minutes ago. He is already working. A guy that old is already working and that experienced on a regulated blockchain. What the blockchain and the crypto space has to do with that is to laugh. Well, they laugh at everything. Crypto is nothing unusual. So they're laughing at a regulated blockchain. I think that has a future. I think that has a way of itself. So we are looking at a non-inflationary macroeconomy. I am looking at a more global, non-geocentric macro finance. And I'm looking at crypto, if not crypto, then at least blockchain as the fundamental of this economy and finance.
Mario, you're at the heart of media. You talk to a lot of important people. Your Twitter space is widely followed. A lot of people, as you know, are talking about getting away from the banks. And indeed, that's exactly what happened with Signature Bank, a bank run. Suppose, this is my hypothetical, everybody withdraws their money out of the banks. The obvious question is, what do they do with that money? You can't survive without a bank, right? Is it too early and premature in our civilization to be independent of the financial system we know today?
Yeah. Look,
Lebanon and Syria, no? Yeah, you have to quote that, right?
Yeah, I talked about it. Actually, I talked about that example yesterday or today. Look, what's happening right now is that regional banks are taking a massive hit, and that money's flowing into the big four, the big five, depending which country you're referring to. So there's a centralization of wealth happening in the system, and that lack of competitiveness in any industry is not a good thing. Now, we're not seeing a run on the banks in general. We just saw a run on the banks on a big niche bank that's focused on tech startups, and we saw a bit of fear around Credit Suisse. But what's happening, again, because of how fast, and I keep reiterating this, it's something that hasn't been talked about enough, but it's been talked a lot about in the last few episodes I did, and not by me, by people coming in from the system. Like it's not random people coming up, people within the system that people would listen to for guidance. And I think even Mark Cuban mentioned that particular point, is that the speed in which information spreads makes it very concerning. So if you have, even with Silicon Valley Bank being a niche bank in the US, we had people, and many people gave examples, in Latin America, in Australia, in Eastern and Western Europe, say, hey, calling people that are in the space, like, hey, should I be worried? Should I pull my money out of the bank? Nothing to do with Silicon Valley Bank. So all it takes is for this to spread to more institutions. When the Fed and regulators can only do, all these institutions, all these systems that we have can only do so much. Now, I'm not trying to spread fear, and it could all be okay in a week. They're responding really, really quickly. Interest rates could, the hikes could stop. A lot of people are only expecting a 25 basis point increase, potentially no increase in the next meeting. That could happen. That could stop everything. Everything goes back to normal. Or it could be what Gaurav mentioned. It could be just another patch. But it just shows fundamental concerns in the system. The system is very complex. It's very convoluted. For us not to be able to to spot what happened in 2008 is insane. And then for nobody to have spotted what happened to Silicon Valley Bank, except a bunch of guys on Seeking Alpha that did a piece on Silicon Valley Bank 3 months before it imploded. But no regulator had any idea it's going to happen. Otherwise, they would have acted earlier. It's just odd. Yeah. Now, I just cannot see a world where I'm trying not to be, not to be biased, considering we're both in the space in the Web3 space. But the use case just gets proven time and time again of the concept of a decentralized store of value and a decentralized financial system. Too early to replace anything in the traditional financial system, still a drop in the ocean.
Right.
But the use case, the narrative is gaining steam. We'll see. And we saw how crypto responded in the last few days and how well it's doing.
Quite positively. Considering is ironic.
Silicon Valley Bank and not First Republic, the other one, Silvergate, and the third one, they're all off-ramp and on-ramps to crypto. So technically, those banks getting hit is a bad thing for crypto, yet we saw crypto rally. It's a fascinating response. If we see crypto rally and equities take a hit, for me, that would be a very, very fascinating, I'd even use the word bullish indicator. But we'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I hope that happens.
I want to switch gears.
The most ironic thing in all of this is the TV commercial around the Super Bowl of FTX. And the way it rolls around, has anyone of you seen it? It's like, don't be frank. That's the headline. Don't miss out on the latest trend. So it begins with the invention of wheel, the guy bringing it to Frank. Frank says, nah, it's wrong, It's ironic how I have to quote that in this conversation, but this keeps happening over and over again. That happened with money first day when we were doing barter, and people are like, what? You want to exchange a piece of the skull meat of a goat, of a sheep, against the whole goat? It's stupid, right? That's how barter switched to money. Then money switched to gold and zinc and whatnot, and then we kept switching. And today, there was internet, and people said, what? I'll see my money on a computer screen. Where's the screen anyway, right? And then today we don't even have cash, right? So this keeps happening over and over again. I don't think there's any other route to adoption of things. I have to quote a question posed on me on another panel last week by Nikita Sachdev. And she said, Gaurav, what do you think about metaverse and crypto in general? Certainly there's a lot of hype, but what's the reality below that? And I said, first of all, I'm glad there's hype, because the hype is the trigger for audience to look at something at the first place. And then to suit that demand of audience looking at it, there are startups and key players providing them with something. Now, obviously, a lot of that is shit, and it goes to scrap, and then something out of that is proven right, and it supplies to that demand. And that is the product market fit / adoption of an industry in general. Right, and that's where the cycle begins. So I'm glad there's hype around crypto. I know 99% of that will go to shit and has already gone to shit, but that is the key to the beginning of a revolution, because if there's no hype, if there's no shit, if there's no speculation, who would come into supply to that? And where would innovation feed? What would innovation feed on? Innovation is a super expensive affair. It can only feed on free money, because nobody wants to really feed innovation at the cost of failing. So where does that money come from? Speculation. We're having the right speculation. We trashed 99% of the industry already in the last 11 months. We did it in the 2 years of 2018, 2019, beginning of 2020. We'll keep doing it. This is how, but we still need the necessary speculation, right? Let me give you another example. VR and AR came with a bang. AI actually did that 3 years ago, and it was immediately, AI was an immediate failure in terms of speculation and hype within 2 years. And because of AR and VR sort of entering in the middle of that decline, AR and VR never got that hype. You can clearly look at the innovation that happened in AR and VR in the last 10 years. Because it didn't have the hype was killed because the AI was suffering a hype. And people were saying, oh, we'll not spend any more money on any further speculation of a new buzzword. This is what exactly that happened to VR. Now we see metaverse, right? So first of all, I'm not against hype, I'm not against speculation, because all of that feeds innovation. That innovation finds its way, its tiny thin way into the lanes of adoption. And then when somebody discovers that adoption somewhere, more people starts adding on to adoptions, right? So that's what we are living now. Crypto.
The Gartner hype cycle starts with hype and ends with adoption.
And so does the macroeconomics, how does the economic machinery work? The video
Starts with a hype.
value, right?
You love that
Wait,
video.
do we have to have a crash before we get adoption? Hype, crash, adoption.
Bro, what?
Bigger the crash, the bigger the adoption.
Crash? I think you're late. What else could happen for us to get more screwed? There's nothing left. we got. I can count on half a hand the big guys that are left standing, and even those guys are getting all that heat. So man, like I just can't see us going any lower.
How's AI disrupting? We were talking about AI. How is AI disrupting?
This is
your
the beast
space
of AI.
blockchain?
Like this is like I'm okay. I'll tell you how it's disrupting what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's a very small scale to what his answer is gonna be. AI is my best friend during my shows. Why? My shows are.
Don't open the secret, Mario. Don't open the secret.
No, I'll say it. I say it. I'm pretty transparent. It backfires on me, but it is. So I cover everything. Okay, I cover from the financial system.
Everyone should check out his Twitter space, by the way. We'll put the link in the description below.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. But we cover anything that's gaining traction. I'm a very curious person. I've been a curious person since I was a kid. So whether it's a Chinese balloon in the US, whether it's the Ukraine war or Taiwan tensions, whether it's the Twitter files and censorship, all the crypto topics, or now the banking system in the world going through the implosion. So how the hell can I know all this about everything? There's no way. I'm always learning in those spaces. But at the same time, I have to fact check everything. You know, we used to hire someone that does it for us. We need someone new. Chat GPT has become my best friend. I ask it any question. Someone mentions something, I fact check it on the spot. It literally gives me questions to ask, gives me on the spot.
But it's not linked to the internet. How do you get current event stuff?
Not current event stuff. Things that are more historical or like facts. When it's current events, you just gotta, gotta Google News it. So that's like I'm a weird person. I would tell my team before, and I don't know if I told you this. What I would do is I would tell my team, hey, remember? I'm like, hey Bob, can you please research this on Chat GPT? It's like the concept of AI is like to talk to AI. I've got a person in my team in the middle, my partner, checking for me on chat. He's like, Mario, I can't keep doing this. He's like, go on Chat GPT, log in. I'm like, look, I can't do this. Log in. I did it on the spot, and I asked a question, and it answers me. And that was Chat GPT 3. Today we had yesterday Chat GPT 4 came out. And it answers me, and now it's my best friend. I would not be surprised. I'm a pretty antisocial person. I'm not a social person. My best friend may get close to you one day. Just saying, don't get jealous, but you're competing with Chat GPT 4. And it's getting in.
Doesn't AI directly compete with decentralized finance for management and content and information dissemination?
I'm sorry to dodge your question a bit by giving you a backdrop of what AI is now and what AI is going to be in the future, only picking up breadcrumbs from the past. So money was the past, internet came in, and the money on internet became the future, right? AI on centralized systems is the present and the past, which means today you're talking to, I'm not saying it's happening, I'm just saying today, let's say a product like Chat GPT, and not Chat GPT exactly, is answering your questions where you're asking, how do I lose weight? How do I get my eyesight better? How do I go from Dubai to US or India, right? And Chat GPT is supposed to give you the right answers because you're assuming that the regenerative AI, this is basically the transformer model. The T stands for transformer training models. These are regenerative models, which essentially means there are humans flagging and tagging the AI trained models to real data. So this is how you insert a soul into intelligence to...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but Mario, can you step in? I've seen all over Twitter, and perhaps you talked about this as well, is ChatGPT answering the same question regarding politicians differently. Is it taking political sides?
Man,
I'll give you an example.
I'll probably answer it better. Yeah, it's getting there, and he'll explain it how.
Okay.
But then the point is, this is how it's structured now. What happens in the future? Let's say another Chat GPT, not Chat GPT, the other product comes in with a sponsor. They have a protein powder or somebody sponsoring it. Next time you ask Chat GPT, how do I lose my weight? They'll answer, it would probably come back to you with an answer like, oh yeah, use this product, use that airlines, use this car, use Uber instead of Kareem, use Kareem instead of Uber, and so on and so forth, right? How would you know that you're landing to a right answer if it's sponsored? Why? Because there's a central entity using that AI. The future of regenerative AI, and I think AI in general, is more democratic. You can easily spread that out on a decentralized model where the regenerative AI, instead of being trained by a set of people working under an umbrella or a company, would be people like us. The regenerative model is trained by people democratically. Those trainers and those modelers are also voted by a democratic process. So they're not representing a person in particular, a company in particular, or a geography in particular. It's the decentralized way of doing it. That's where blockchain kicks in. So I think the future of AI is somewhere democratic, managed by blockchain, trained on decentralized computation, which is actually cheaper than using Azure and having all the billions by Microsoft. So yeah, AI and blockchain do meet in the future. I think that's the only future that we deserve and we should have. And there's a whole plethora of startups that are catering to these requirements in particular. Now, to bring this into perspective of what you guys are talking about, I'm absolutely non-political. I read nothing about it, so I don't know what ChatGPT has to say about it. But imagine mixing Mario's citizen journalism, which is fed by all the interested and involved parties and the last mile, right? All of them collectively training and labeling the models of AI. So the AI has nothing in particular to offer to you, but the AI has multiple models that are fed, labeled, and structured and informed by the participants of a particular fair. You can depend on media 100% next time, because now what you have is an unbiased, democratically voted, democratically trained, and an intelligence of the crowd giving you a perspective for the first time. What is intelligence of the crowd? It is, somebody saying something, other people saying other things, but in general there has to be a perspective and a consensus. This is what blockchain brings you. But if that blockchain feeds an AI that is giving you that perspective, you can certainly believe on that to be the intelligence of the crowd.
Unbiased media. Some might say that's oxymoron, and I'm not, I'm media, so I'm allowed to say that. But you understand more than anybody. Do you agree with him that Gaurav is saying AI could potentially be the stepping stone towards achieving full unbiasedness in disseminating information? How would this happen? What would this look like?
Scary shit, isn't it? If you think about it, like everything you said, decentralizing such an intelligence, it's going to be fascinating. It's an experiment, man. Like, we're seeing the concept of unbiased media is the first real experiment of that is happening on Twitter right now. And if you integrate AI, which is what Elon is talking about now, he tweeted about, it's going to be a really fascinating experiment. Now, if you add decentralization to this, I don't know what's going to happen to my friend, Mr. AI, how when I talk to him, how he's going to respond. I think that'll be... It's really interesting, man. I don't know. I think this bias will always be there. I think it will be, every human is biased. Okay. I just think if AI is gonna learn from humanity, how to think, and I'm simplifying something that's a lot more complex. He's explained in depth. But if AI is kind of getting the information from humanity, which is inherently biased, then AI has to inherently be biased. Now, when it's centralized, the centralized entities determine what that bias is, and people are already calling Chat GPT woke. Now, whether it is or not, I have no idea. I haven't gone that deep, but that narrative is already there. Now, when it becomes decentralized, I don't know. I genuinely have no idea how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, no one can predict that. But if I'll conclude, I know I explained it in a very complex way. Simple things. Intelligence of the crowd is multiple people expressing their opinion. If multiple people express their opinion to tag, flag, and train an AI, it essentially is supposed to inherit the collective intelligence of this crowd. And this is all hypothetical, of course, but real at the same time, because Chat GPT is regenerative training for the first time, regenerative transformer model. So people vote for people who tag and flag and train the future of AI. This AI now responds to your question. It is supposed to be the general bias. If there is a bias, it's the intelligence of the crowd.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to make it complicated.
Well, finally, let's end on startups. You're both entrepreneurs and venture capitalists in your own right. Let's just start with you, Gaurav. Your startup picking procedure, criteria, what do you look for? How do you invest?
15 years in investing, startups, angel, early seed. My conclusion, and that is 100% agreed by most of my VC friends, is you really can't judge the startup in terms of its product, in terms of its future. All you can do is assess the founders. How crazy are they about their idea? How persistent they are and they would be. And then finally, the adoption of the product. Is the product something that people would adopt? And it's really something that sticks to the market. So yeah, we look at the founders, we look at the adoption in the market of the product, and how it addresses is how simply does it address it.
Give us an example of something. You don't have to name names, but a product or a project that
I'd rather name industries, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
And this is where we
high adoption. That's what they've done.
I come from investing in almost everything tech, from electronics to software to life science. Anything that is at the pinnacle of innovation. I've invested it in the last 15 years, including fintech. The largest wallets of my countries and so on, when they were not even, when they were laughed at, that you're not even a bank, you're only giving me cookies against money, what are you, right? So we invested in those companies back then. From that, I think it's a big confirmation of my conviction of the future of investment. I came to crypto 2015, now I'm all things crypto. Within crypto, like I said, I'm not trying to answer in terms of projects, I'm trying to answer in terms of industries. We picked up heavily on DeFi. This is actually the thing that changed my life, from a VC to an incubator, where now I work 20 hours a day, lose my voice, do all sort of fancy stuff, while as a VC I was just chilling in one of the beaches every week of the world, right? So DeFi was that. So I heavily resonate with DeFi and the way it will change the finance in general. Then we skipped NFTs. We sort of didn't touch metaverse in its vague form. We did touch metaverse in its particulars, which is education. I think it'll change education forever. I think it'll change corporates forever. Repeating that, it's just not something that has been discovered properly. And then I am crazy bullish on GameFi. Just that the present state of GameFi will take a while. These guys are already successful. So, previously successful industries take a bit of a while to adopt something, right? So they're taking their own sweet time. So we don't come in on GameFi companies that are not really Web3 and only claiming to be Web3. But the last thing I want to quote is AI. AI is the best thing that has happened to the world in general. AI on blockchain is the best thing that can happen to AI altogether. So we are very bullish on AI. We already have some crazy big AI projects that have a true sense of decentralization, and hence we are working with them. Like I said, we are more psychologically inclined to things, projects, and people. So the AI projects that are more psychologically inclined towards blockchain are the ones we are looking at and we are working with. These are huge projects. So we'll be opening up our show about AI and blockchain in the next 3 months.
Fantastic. Mario, I'm going to give you the mic here. Tell us about your background leading into the VC space. How did you get involved in the VC space? And how do you, same question, what sorts of projects are you involved with?
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple guy. You like my second answer. First answer, how I got into the VC world. I'm a founder. Like, I'm bootstrapped. Never raised money. This has just changed recently. So, I come from the dirt, starting my first business about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I read your profile. I think you were selling ice cream or something.
Yeah, close. Actually, yeah, like that was the first thing, but I didn't never talk about frozen ice cream for cafes. And then that moved to my brand that's called Fruity, which is a global health and wellness brand doing really well. Hats off to the managers there, and it still functions today, 10 years later. But I got into crypto in 2017, made my first investment into Filecoin, because that's the only project I liked back then. I didn't like all the rubbish that was there, and I missed out on a lot of opportunities. And then last year I started investing heavily, and we became VCs last year with our own money. Now, how do we choose project? That's the interesting one. And he makes fun of me for this answer because he helps me choose projects. How? You gave an example of Ray Dalio. I'm going to use Ray Dalio as well. Ray Dalio talks about something called triangulating, okay, in his book Principles. And he uses an example of, I'm going to try to remember what he says, but he had like a condition, his intestines, and he went to, he's a very wealthy person, so he went to one doctor who said, hey, you need a surgery, you need to cut a piece out of your intestines. He went to another doctor, he's like, no, you need, I think it's radiotherapy, whatever you call it. I probably just butchered the term. And then the third one is like, oh no, you don't need anything, you just need that treatment. It's like 3 specialists, but they had their own, going back to biases, they had their own biases. They gave him 3 completely different opinions. But he triangulated. Doing that once in my life, medically, I pretty much saved my life doing it 4 years ago. So what he did is he got all of them together. He managed to convince them to come all together, and they all came to a conclusion which is somewhere in the middle. Okay? Now, how does this apply to choosing projects? Well, there's a lot of smart people that have different theses and ways of checking projects. So what I do, very simple ways, I know who, like for example, TDFi, their vetting process is just crazy. They go overboard vetting a project. So I know if a TDFi invests in a project or backs a project, that's a tick of approval. So I look for names like TDFi, like Animoca, and others that will back a project. Then I'm like, okay, that's gone through that level of scrutiny. I might come in late, I don't mind, but I've mitigated my risk. He doesn't mind risk. I despise risk. So I can never do what others like TDFi, like Founders Fund do, is come in the seed stage, which is very lucrative if it goes well. I'm just way too risk averse. So what I do is I come in late, I wait for others to kind of triangulate, like having different touch points of like, hey, this is a good project. Obviously we have our own team that checks the project, the final look, but that's usually not needed when you have all these names on there. That's been our strategy before, and it's worked well for us, and that will continue being our strategy. I don't mind, making a 50x rather than a 300x, right. As long as I don't have to go through 20 failures in the process.
Conversation for another time. We'll dig deeper into the startup space and your selection criteria. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time. Excellent talk. I'm sure the audience appreciated that. Thank you.
You're an amazing host for sure. Your energy is great, right? It keeps pulling out the passion of the speaker.
Oh, well, you give me the material, makes it easier for me.
I'll let you guys be cheesy. I'm chill, I'm in the middle.
All right, Mario. Thank you, Gaurav. All right, thank you. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.
Oh yeah, shit, we should have said that.
Cheers, man.
Sorry, man.
Oh, don't worry about it. I mean, you guys.
Subscribe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You want to
subscribe, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you subscribe. The guy's the boss. He's the man.
Yeah, you don't deserve to listen to this if you don't subscribe.
I didn't.
Unsubscribe.
Thank you guys, and thanks for watching. These guys are a lot of fun. All right.